Great and important topic to come up.
Yes, we're going to be talking to Joanne Hughes. She's been working with children in shelters for over 17 years. She's written a really important book called Daniel's Choice, and it deals with children and suicide. And this is a great resource. We're going to talk about it coming up. 9:43 on your Friday morning. Joanne Hughes joining me next. She has worked with troubled youth in residential settings and women's shelters for over 17 years, so a whole lot of experience. Thank you for coming in, Joanne.
Thanks for having me.
Serious but very important topic this morning. You have written a book called Daniel's Choice, and it's about a young boy, just 10 years old. And he's in a real tough spot in his life, and he's actually contemplating ending his life. And what struck me first when I read this book is I can't believe a 10-year-old has so much weight on his shoulders. You see this, you've seen this in your work?
Yeah, you know, when I was working at the shelter, it was like every second child that came through the doors was thinking of suicide or had, you know, thought about it at one point in their life. And quite a few had plans as well, right, of how they would do that. So.
And how does a child at 10 years old get to that point? They've just been here for 10 years.
Well, do you know, in Daniel's case, it was domestic violence. There was fighting at home, self-image, right? Like he had an older brother that the father, you know, he was, you know, a student and into sports, and Daniel just wasn't like that. And really felt really isolated and very much alone at home, and just didn't feel like his you know, family wanted him. His older brother always blamed him for the fighting that was happening between his parents, so he felt very responsible for that. And he just felt that, you know, if he was gone, if he wasn't in this world, then his parents wouldn't fight and they would be happy, right? A happy family.
And in Daniel's Choice, Daniel's friend ends up being an important part of this because he picks up on some of the signs, some of Daniel's sadness.
Yeah, you know, in the book there's some just really short kind of markers to watch for, and one was that, you know, he had mentioned something, you know, maybe I should just be dead. And
we hear kids say that, but we should stop and think and ask when we hear that, because sometimes they just throw that out there, like, I wish I were dead, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And exactly, and you do hear kids use that a lot. And so Daniel's friend kind of, you know, it was that feeling in his stomach too, right? Trusting that just in the pit of his stomach, he just felt really like sick, right? About what he had just said. And so, you know, he gave him also one of his prized trophies, right? Like, so his hockey trophy. And his friend was like, you know, why are you giving me this? So, you know, there was a lot of fighting at school that Daniel was involved in, and then his grades dropped. And so things like that, and, you know, when kids are starting to isolate themselves and maybe acting different too, it's really important for parents to question that. Or
those are signs for parents and teachers, I suppose, need to have their heads up for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and in the book, fortunately, you know, like Daniel had written a note, and his teacher found the note, and Daniel's friend went to the teacher to talk to the teacher about it. So he had some good friends around him.
Now, as a parent, if I hear my child saying these kind of things, what am I doing first? How do I address this?
Well, I think, you know, the most important thing is to address it, to sit down with them. It's always important that, you know, parents know what's going on with their kids, like at school. You know, if they're in fights, who do they hang around with? Or, you know, things like that, right? And then just talk to their children about it. And when they say when you hear your child say something like that, you know, ask them about that. And you know, you make sure that you question them, like, are you thinking of suicide? Have you thought of hurting yourself or harming yourself? It's important to label it and not to hide that, and not sugarcoat it either.
Yeah. And a lot of children, if there are some kids who are hearing this or feeling this, what do you recommend they do?
They can talk to their parents. They could talk to a teacher at school or a counselor. Stay close to their friends. Be supportive of their friends, but for sure talk, and they keep talking until someone listens. So yeah.
And I like how you titled the book Daniel's Choice, because that's important, that you always have another choice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for Daniel, how it, his friend did tell the teacher, and then the principal got involved, and he made a contract with Daniel, so that if he ever felt like that he would talk to his friends or his teachers or his parents. And at this point, the parents were aware of it, obviously, but at the beginning they weren't. So, the one thing I found working in the shelters and with moms and that they just never ever would think that their child thinks about that. So unfortunately, they do think about it often. So, yeah.
Domestic violence problems in the home are a big indicator. Really important topic, Joanne. Thank you for writing this book. This is a resource that you want to get out there,
Right.
more mainstream. So check out Joanne's website. We're going to put that up there, and there'll be more resources out there for you. Joanne, your website again?
www.kamamawopik.com.
We'll have a link on that on our website. Joanne, thank you. We're right back after this.